Hi, everyone. I am here with the amazing Ellie Joyce, who I had met through equally amazing Jackie Zuck of the Pepper Lane community, who is an excellent, excellent PR and everything social media woman that we both love. And I wanted to get Allie here because she is in the real estate world. And the real estate world has been exploding over COVID. And I just wanted to get you in here and get your take on what is going on, what are the trends, what are you seeing out there in the market, and of course, let you introduce yourself properly as well. So
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Diana. I'm thrilled to be here and amongst such good company. And double shout out to Jackie, who is amazing. Highly recommend. So, as Diana mentioned, my name is Allie Joyce. I'm a residential real estate agent with William Ravis. I work in Boston and Greater Boston and the surrounding suburbs. And I do about 40 to 50 transactions annually and anywhere from 20 to 30 million annually. So I bring that up because I've seen quite a bit of things. And as Diana said, it is wild out there and it just seems to be getting wilder and wilder. So last year, I thought I was going to be out of a job. I thought the real estate market was going to come to a screeching halt because no one was going to leave their house. And it ended up being quite the opposite. And what we saw, just as kind of a quick summary, and this will be pretty general, is that people were leaving anyone who was living in the city because they wanted to be close to their office decided to spread their wings and open up their horizons and go wherever their heart desired. And usually it meant to a place with more outdoor space because that's the only places that we could really enjoy more outdoor space and more rooms. There used to be a time where people wanted no rooms. We wanted all open concept and everything open. And I wanted to see you from the dining room all the way down to the kitchen and through the living room. And now, although people like an open entertaining area, we're finding the need for rooms and for privacy. So people are looking for increased rooms. So we saw a little bit of this stagnant activity in the city and much increased activity in the suburbs. The city has come back now. We still are going through some excess inventory, but the suburbs are as wild as ever. And we are seeing properties go 100,000 over, 200,000 over, waiving everything. It's pretty competitive out
Like
there.
wild, wild west, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It
And
really
I
is.
totally, yeah, I totally relate to the need for rooms because everybody with virtual schooling, right? And everyone working from home. And I have been speaking with a number of corporations lately, and everybody is still very wishy-washy in terms of when people are expected back at work. It could be this summer, it could be September, it could be January 2022. It's all up in the air. So yeah, definitely get that. So have you seen a lot of folks upsizing where they lived in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 bedroom, and now they feel like they need to be out and not only with lots of outdoor space, but upsizing in all kinds of ways. What's the trend that you're seeing there?
It is so true. Absolutely. That's the biggest trend that I'm seeing are individuals who, a lot of them are coming from the city and moving into the suburbs. So they might have had their 2, 3 bedroom condo in the city, and now they're ready to sell that and then purchase in the suburbs and get a much more expansive home. So what's interesting about that is we're usually doing a simultaneous sale. And it's very challenging to purchase a property with the home sale contingency now. So we're doing other things to make sure their home sells quickly, and so that we can do it at the same time. So it's actually something that can be quite complicated. Not all real estate agents want to take it on, but it's been something that I have specialized in. So I enjoy it, and we just really need to get our ducks in a row right from the start. And I think the big thing is getting the home that they're living in now ready to sell, so that when they
So you
find
kind
that
of
perfect home, we're able to put it on the market.
So you kind of have to be an interior designer, right? Because you need to get the house ready. You need to have it staged to be able to sell quickly. And I remember I participated in a bunch of staging concepts where they would use paintings to really upsell the home that they're selling. And so that is a huge thing, right? Can you kind of speak a little bit about what you do with selling the homes and staging them and upscaling them specifically for the sale?
Yes, definitely. It's so true. Staging is so important. Little statistic I'll throw out there is that staged homes sell for 20% more and 40% faster than non-staged homes.
That's
Now, for
huge.
someone, I know, isn't that kind of crazy?
Yeah, yeah.
And the reality is there's a lot of psychology involved in buying your home. And it's really at the subconscious level because everyone watches HGTV and they think, blow out that wall, do this, do that. Oh, yeah, I have vision. I can see a house and I can renovate it mentally. And I don't need the home to be staged to know that I like it. And the reality is that when it's your home and you're walking into it, you have all of these emotions. And sometimes you can't understand why. But what is making you feel calm and making you feel that you like the home is maybe the light and bright color palette of the home. It's the how pleasant the home looks, how inviting the dining room table looks, or the just creating a dining area. And so staging is so important to create that first impression that we can never get back. And when my clients are living in their home, we have to do an occupied staging. And that's when things like you mentioned, the artwork really comes into place. I have clients who have a gorgeous, high rise condo, and they're looking to sell and settle down in the suburbs. And we're doing exactly that because they're living there now and they have good furniture. So we'll talk about, okay, spatially, let's move this here, let's move that there so we can create a flow, we can create some open space so it doesn't feel too crowded. And then, they have some fun artwork that a friend drew or is a favorite album. And that's honestly where artwork like yours, Diana, comes in perfectly, because if we're at this, you're this $2 million condo, you want everything to speak luxury and elegance. And so by simply changing out a piece of artwork can totally transform the room, and it can create a really beautiful focal point that can draw the eye, to that area. And people won't sometimes, often they do, especially if it's your piece of work, they'll be like, oh, I love that. What is that artwork? But sometimes they don't even recognize that it's the artwork. It's just a general feeling that it gives the home.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had someone visit my studio today, and as soon as she came in and started looking at the pieces that I was getting out, her first comment was, "Well, there's just so much air, and it feels like you're
Mm,
breathing so much easier just by looking at them." And yes, it is a feeling
I
that you
believe
don't
that.
really it's tough to explain it, right? But it's a completely different thing when you walk into a house that is filled with things that feel like an oasis, right? As opposed to
Yes.
just empty, bare walls that are cold and uninviting, right?
It's so true. And like you said, it's art is such a it has such an intense response on us as humans. And I think a lot of people, for most people, it's at a subconscious level that they don't even understand.
Yeah, amazing. So I know you've been super, super busy. Every single person that deals, the mortgage folks that I know, the real estate folks that I know have just been living at work, right? Like it's just been nonstop. So, what do you do for that life work balance? How do you manage to not be overwhelmed, not be burnt out? Have you found any cool hobbies? How have you pivoted in this really crazy time?
It's so true. I mean, work-life balance is something that I'm constantly working on,
Mm,
which is
aren't we
probably the
all?
wrong verb because there's too much work.
Yeah.
But for me, my mindset as an entrepreneur, which I'm sure you can agree, is everything. And that means I need to have some alley time, strewn in there. And what I've noticed are a couple of things. Like if I don't fill my cup, then I'm not as good to my clients. And that's obviously my number one goal. So I always wake up an hour early before I need to do anything.
So
And
do
that's where I
I.
have
Yeah.
my morning time. I have my coffee. I will loosely meditate. I wish I was a better meditator, but there's a lot that goes on in here. I will journal. I'll just kind of just just have some peaceful moments where I love my coffee. So I'm just like slurp, 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 like so yummy. And that is something that now I wake up an hour early for it. I used to be the type who I would have my coffee as I ran and got ready. So that's become a priority, making sure that I find, even if it's 15 minutes of just a little bit of a workout. And then, of course, the hardest part, which I don't know if you have this too, actually, it probably is because I feel like I've seen some late night emails from you, but is shutting off at the end of the day
Yeah.
because that's where I'm like, oh, let me just send this one last thing. Oh, I'm thinking of this. Let me just do this right now. And during COVID, have rediscovered, I kind of tried to, I always like to have some sort of artistic outlet. I really enjoyed like refinishing furniture. That tends to be messy. And if I don't finish the project, then my husband doesn't love that because there's like,
I can
like
relate. Yeah.
paint and sand and all this
Yeah.
stuff all over the house. So, and I experimented with like doing some painting. I think I told you I tried to do the impasto, which I was not skilled at. So I rediscovered crocheting. And that's kind of been my little hobby since COVID. And what is good for me, and this will give you an insight into my mind, is that when I like my husband and I will have like a show that we watch, and at the before we go to bed we'll take an hour and watch it together, and I would scroll through my phone and do my emails. I always like to have something that I was like googling, and I really wasn't relaxing. I really wasn't shutting off. I had the blue screen, the blue light, whatever they call it. So what's nice about the crochet is that I have my hands are being distracted, but it's very meditative, especially if you're doing the same pattern all over again. And then you're creating something that's beautiful. And it kind of, I'm rambling at this point, but it got to the point, especially last year when we were in quarantine, it got to the point where I was like, I think I'm a crochet addict. Like I just want to crochet all the time. And I was speaking to a friend about it and they're like, why don't you set an intention that when you crochet, you're creating whatever you want to your life, you're meditating. And so that's kind of how it's become so much more than just a way to busy my hands and a hobby. And I'm working on a little bunny. So we'll see. His head is a little odd. I hopefully I can salvage him or her. I think is the pattern called her Miffy. So her.
That's amazing. Well, I have to say that I do the same thing. I wake up an hour earlier than everyone, and I've been officially meditating for about a year now. And what
Awesome.
I find incredible about that is that if you do this on a continuous basis, it teaches you to, at least for a couple of seconds, be able to quiet down your mind.
Yes.
And that is just so important in the morning, is
Mm-hmm.
to have that ability to not just get into the go, 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 routine because that's what we're so used to, just like you're saying, with your cup of
Yes.
coffee and sitting down with your cup of coffee. But with, and at the end of the day, too, what I have been doing is, and my husband is not happy with me at all, because we used to have that hour when we would watch a show after the kids would go to
Yes.
bed, but I've been forcing myself to go to bed earlier so that I get my
Mm,
7 hours of sleep at least.
yes.
And I shut off right before going to sleep because we're so used to, checking Facebook before we go to sleep,
Right.
checking the news, what's going on, checking the stats on COVID cases, right?
Yes. Yep.
Um, I made myself, as the very last thing that I do before I'm off to sleep, to record 3 wins that day and 3 gratitudes, and then that's it. Like, I shut off my phone, and that's how every day ends.
I
And
love
I'm not
that.
allowing myself watch the news. I'm not allowing myself get into the rabbit hole with Facebook checking, and it's my sleep has never been better because I'm
Wow.
not like overloading myself with all of that information. And I love what you're saying about crochet because there's definitely that connection between motor skills and our
Mm,
brains and how we process things in a completely different way when we're doing something with our hands. Um, and your friend is absolutely right in terms of that being a creative process, right? And regardless of what you're making, it's not really at all about what you're making. It's just
right.
about the fact of doing it, right? Because you are creating life. Is it Millie that you're
Yes. Miffy, they say.
okay?
Miffy, little Miffy.
Okay, yeah.
Um, and you know what's also so interesting about that? I want to ask you about your meditating, but with the motor skills, is it's also a challenge sometimes to just create something without an end goal. And I know that's something that you do a lot in your workshops. It's like, I will be like, I need to find a new project and an end goal, but the reality is I just want to pick up the needles and do some stitches. Um, so that's something I try to work on, like with my mind, because I'm so like, what's the purpose for this? Instead of just embracing, just having the purpose be the process.
It's huge. And I think we're so programmed to be
Mm,
focusing on judgment, right? And on
yeah,
competition and on how well we complete a certain task. And when I have these workshops happen for corporations and individuals, the very first thing I say is this is not going to be like paint night. We're not going to
mm,
all paint the same thing. I want you to learn the techniques and then just have fun and
yeah,
explore and not really focus. You're all going to end up with something incredible. Like, I promise you that. So let's just forget about that, but really enjoy the process. And it completely shifts your mindset when you
right,
do that, because you're allowing yourself to just play and
right.
experiment and feel like a little kid again, as opposed to focusing on the product and the end result and how good am I at this? Why did I sign up for this? Why am I doing this?
Right.
And
Is theirs better than mine? Like,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it shows up so early too. I see this in 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds.
Wow.
This constant judgment and need for
Mm,
perfection, and it's part of the classes that I lead is really talking about the importance of the process and the
right.
layers, and that you can't judge anything until it's done, and you just keep on working at it for a little longer and then it gets better. And I think there's so many parallels between what we're doing during our creative process
Mm,
and what we are stuck with in real life. And it's just always interesting to watch exactly where people get stuck and having them then think about, all right, so how does this reflect my usual personality? How am
right.
I? It's so incredible to
It's
be
having me
privy
think
to
twice about Miffy. I'm like, ooh, something wrong with the head. Makes sense. No.
that. So,
No, but it's so true. And sometimes because of these stories that we hear and that we're told and that are ingrained in us, we probably need to communicate it through our motor skills because it's not conscious to us.
right. Some of it we
Um,
can't express in words. Yeah. Some of it
right.
is coming from the subconscious. Um, and there are no words for it. And that's why it's so important to find an outlet, a creative outlet to be
Right.
able to express our emotions, especially when there's so much anxiety and overwhelm and burnout everywhere. It's that much more important to be engaging in something that fills your cup, just like you're saying.
I
Yeah.
agree. You must have experienced some like pretty special moments with people like having breakthroughs, like as they do these workshops.
It's been pretty incredible, especially techies. The
Yeah.
very first thing they say is, I have no idea why I signed up for this, and I don't know what I'm doing here. And then by the end of the hour, it's a completely different person. They have a lot more
Wow.
color in their faces. They're a lot more social and interactive with their peers virtually. And just so there's this increased level of self-confidence because they have accomplished something. They created something that is truly theirs and not a
Right.
copy, right, of anything in front of them. And they were able to get out of their comfort zone and enjoy it,
Yeah.
and not feel like they're dying in the process. So yeah,
I
it's
love that.
amazing to watch that.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes, like, when you need to think about, like, I'm working on a presentation for my alumni association, sometimes when you sit down to think about something, you can't think. So now, as we're talking, I'm like, oh, like, what would you recommend for someone at home? Like, just have a little bit of clay nearby, or like, just get stuck into something and just let the inspiration come. Like, how could you have like an at home kit to quickly get into this, like, mindset and the creative flow?
That's an excellent question. I think I would just start out with pencils, right?
Yeah, okay.
And if you're sitting in front of a window and you need to think, just look out the window and
Mm,
doodle or sketch whatever you're seeing, right?
right,
That's the easiest thing to do. I also have some oil pastels in the drawer next to me, and I could just do something in color or
mm,
markers or colored pencils, but just to get you out of your head and to
right,
get the other side of your brain working
right,
helps so much in terms of looking at whatever you're challenged with, like the presentation, right, for
right,
the alumni from a completely different perspective. And then all of a
right.
sudden, just it's sort of like being in the shower, right? And then all of
Yeah,
a sudden, you start coming up with all of these ideas that feel like they're coming out of nowhere, but it's really because you're accessing that other
other
part of
side of
your
your
brain. Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
So interesting. I used to love oil pastels as a kid.
I
I
know they're
think because I
so
would,
nice and messy and yeah,
yes, I would smudge them together and
yeah.
um yeah, that was so fun. So now I'm gonna go on Amazon and
Yeah,
order some
they're,
oil
they're an easy
pastels.
way to start for sure. But I'm so happy to hear that even though you're ridiculously busy, that you're finding ways to balance and you know how important it is to do that. That's incredible. Um,
Yes, I mean, it's not perfect, but I'm certainly making an effort with it.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, good for you.
And
That's
you
excellent. Yeah.
too.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been, really hard for all of us this past year,
Yeah,
but the more ways we can take care of ourselves before we, just like they say on the plane, right? You put your mask on before you
right.
give it to your kids. If we're not taking care of ourselves, then we are much worse in taking care of others. So, and my husband at this point knows this so well
Yeah.
because if soon as I start getting antsy and
Mm.
freaking out about something, he's like, all right, it's time to go to the studio.
Right. He's like,
And
uh,
yeah, yeah, because it's just so key.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know how tricky it is to make time in your day to chat. So I'm really appreciative of you being here. And if there's anything that you want to add to the chat, if you have anything coming up, feel free to just add it to our chat under the Facebook Live, and I'll share this. And if anybody has any questions as well, I'll have them refer to you as well. So
perfect.
everybody, thank you to Ali for being here.
Thank
And
you for having me, and
yeah,
hi to everyone who might be watching now or later.
yeah, yeah. Thank
It's
you.
been such
Thanks
a pleasure
again.
chatting.
Yeah, thank you.